How does a weak little kid go from stealing objects from the trash
Rudo, you can't just bolt off like that.
to fighting actual trash beasts, as well as every other piece of trash villain that stands in his way?
What's going on? My slices ain't even coming close to slicing.
Unlike most people, our main character in Gachiakuta is extremely fascinated by literal garbage. And as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So, without yapping too much, let's just get into it. The first episode opens in the wealthy district of a city, where a young girl bursts into tears after her favorite plushie is torn and its stuffing starts coming out. Her mother casually tells her that they can simply buy a new one, and the girl immediately stops crying before tossing the damaged toy into the trash. Elsewhere, a hooded boy named Rudo sneaks into a massive waste disposal facility in search of discarded items. The guards consider people like him, known as trash raiders, to be criminals and a threat to society. Ignoring the danger, Rudo scavenges through the garbage, collecting anything that still has value. When the guards discover him, he manages to evade their gunfire with impressive agility, though one shot grazes his arm before he escapes. Man, imagine getting shot at for stealing literal trash. The next day, news of the raids spreads throughout the city. Many citizens immediately blame the tribesfolk who live in the slums. The city itself is sharply divided into two worlds. One side is clean, wealthy, and beautiful, while the other is dirty, impoverished, and neglected. Only a small gate separates the two districts. Back in the slums, Rudo is repairing the items he stole during the raid, including the discarded plushie. His friend Chiwa scolds him for risking his life, but Rudo doesn't care. He hates seeing perfectly usable items thrown away by people who have more than they need, and selling those discarded goods is one of the few ways he can make money. As they talk, several local kids approach and begin mocking him. They accuse him of ruining the reputation of the slums, just like his father did. According to them, Rudo's father was a murderer who went on a killing spree, and they insist that Rudo will eventually become the same kind of person. Chiwa is the only one who stands up for him, insisting that Rudo is nothing like his father. Embarrassed by her kindness, Rudo tries to give her the plushie he repaired, but he loses his nerve before he can say anything meaningful. Before he gets another chance, though, Chiwa's mother calls her away. If you're a JoJo fan, you've probably dreamed about creating a playable team of your favorite characters. Well, boys and girls, now you can. The first globally released JoJo's Bizarre Adventure mobile RPG is officially here. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. You can build your ultimate dream team with iconic characters from parts 1 through 6. You can develop your characters, upgrade their skills, enhance their equipment, and build a team that fits your playstyle. And there's plenty to do beyond the main battles. That's right, you can test your strategy across different game modes, take on challenging content, join a guild, add friends, and team up with other players in cooperative and multiplayer challenges. But that's not all. To celebrate the launch, a special SSR Jotaro Kujo Summon event is now available. You can experience a character story following Jotaro's journey through Stardust Crusaders, while limited-time login events and special activities give you the chance to collect valuable rewards and exclusive launch bonuses. And if you're wondering whether it actually feels like JoJo, the game doesn't hold back. The anime-inspired visuals recreate the look and feel of the original series, while cinematic battles bring iconic stand abilities to life. You'll also see those signature back-breaking poses, character interactions, and plenty of those unforgettable JoJo moments that fans know and love. So whether you've been following JoJo for years or you're just discovering the Bizarre Adventure, now's the perfect time to jump in. Download JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Spirit on iOS and Android. Build your own JoJo Dream Team, enjoy diverse game modes, and unlock exclusive launch rewards. Alright, now back to the video. Later, Rudo returns home, where his adoptive father, Regto, immediately teases him about his awkward attempt to give Chiwa the gift. However, his playful attitude disappears when he notices Rudo's injuries from the raid.
What's going on with your arm? Did you get shot?
It's just a scratch. It's not a big deal.
Regto treats his wound and worries that the authorities will eventually catch his adopted son. He fears that one day Rudo would be thrown into the pit, the massive abyss where criminals and garbage are discarded. Interestingly, that is the same fate that befell Rudo's biological father. It's also worth mentioning that Rudo suffers from a mysterious condition that leaves his hands permanently scarred, blackened, and in constant pain. Many people find them disturbing, but Regto gave him an old pair of gloves that ease the pain and allow him to function normally. Unbeknownst to Regto and Rudo, a masked figure watches their home from outside. The following day, Rudo heads out to find Chiwa again. Along the way, he passes the pit where an execution is taking place, drawing a crowd of spectators. Chiwa arrives and admits that she hates seeing people treated this way. The conversation turns to Regto, and when Rudo mentions something his adoptive father told him, Chiwa casually remarks that Regto loves him. Then, she adds that she loves Rudo too. The comment leaves Rudo completely flustered, and in a burst of courage, he finally gives her the repaired plushie. Though he still can't express his true feelings, he's overjoyed simply to have given her a gift. Unfortunately, that happiness is short-lived. On his way home, Rudo notices several guards nearby but thinks nothing of it. When he enters the house, he's met with a horrifying sight. The masked stranger from earlier is standing over Regto, having just stabbed him. Rudo rushes to his adoptive father's side, but the attacker manages to leave before he can stop him. With his dying breath, Regto tells Rudo to run. Before he can escape, however, the guards arrive and immediately accuse him of murdering Regto. Without a proper investigation, Rudo is arrested and sentenced to death. He desperately pleads for someone to believe him, but nobody listens. The betrayal hurts even more when Chiwa, probably out of fear of the mob, declares that he truly is just like his father and throws away the plushie he gave her.
You're just the son of a killer.
Ouch. Not you too, Chiwa. As Rudo is dragged to the pit for public execution, he spots the masked killer standing among the crowd, watching everything unfold. In what seems like a waking nightmare, the guards throw him into the abyss. As he falls, Rudo screams in rage, cursing the people who abandoned him and swearing revenge on everyone responsible. Then, he falls unconscious. When he finally wakes up, he finds himself in a vast wasteland buried beneath endless mountains of garbage, the destination of everything the city has ever thrown away. But the piles of trash are not the only thing waiting for him. Towering nearby is a gigantic monster made entirely of trash, staring directly at him.
The pit's not a landfill. It's hell.
What the what? In episode 2, Rudo finds himself trapped in the ground, a wasteland covered in endless mountains of garbage. Keep in mind that the upper world where Rudo fell from is referred to as the Sphere. As he struggles to escape from the terrifying trash beasts roaming on the ground, Rudo can barely breathe through the awful smell of the area. After collapsing onto a pile of trash, he feels his strength fading away. But the thoughts of Regto and everything he meant to him reignite his determination. Refusing to die, Rudo charges at the approaching trash beasts and attacks one head on.
I'm gonna find that mask-wearing creep! And beat his ass! So there's no way I'm dying until I've made them all pay!
His effort, while brave, is futile. And before the monsters can finish him off, a mysterious man suddenly appears before him. The man gives him a mask that allows him to breathe more easily in the ground's toxic atmosphere. Eager for answers, Rudo bombards him with questions, only to be repeatedly told to stay quiet. With a strange umbrella weapon, the man effortlessly destroys an approaching trash beast in spectacular fashion. Eventually, after destroying the rest of the monsters, the man explains a shocking truth. This place is not underground at all. The ground is actually the original surface world, buried beneath the endless garbage discarded by the people living in the sphere above. Afterward, the man finally introduces himself as Engine, a member of a group known as the Cleaners. As they travel, Rudo remembers a childhood incident where the other children mocked and beat him for claiming that objects were alive. Back then, Regto had comforted him and explained that every object possesses a soul if it's cherished and cared for. He even told Rudo that his gloves had a soul of their own, inspiring the boy to treasure them. Back in the present, Engine keeps Rudo chained while escorting him through the ground. Rudo insists that he wants to return to the sphere, but Engine bluntly tells him that such a thing isn't possible right now. Still desperate for answers, Rudo refuses to back down, prompting Engine to teach him a harsh lesson about life in the ground. The lesson quickly turns dangerous. Engine leaves Rudo in what appears to be a harmless settlement, where several friendly-looking men approach him. At first, they seem excited to meet someone from the sphere and even remove his chains. However, their true intentions soon become clear.
Man, why couldn't I have met these guys first?
There, much more secure.
They are human traffickers who despise spherites, as they call them, and intend to sell Rudo to the highest bidder, joking that he might end up tortured or dissected. To make matters worse, they force him to eat garbage while mocking him. Furious at the cruelty and prejudice he's experienced both in the sphere and the ground, Rudo finally snaps. When he bites off one of the trafficker's fingers, a hidden power awakens within him. His treasured gloves respond to his emotions, transforming into a powerful weapon. The traffickers are stunned, realizing that Rudo possesses the rare ability of a giver, a person capable of bringing extraordinary power out of objects that they've formed deep bonds with. Rudo unleashes his newfound strength and overwhelms the traffickers. Just as he's about to kill the last one, Engine intervenes and stops him. Confused and shaken by what just happened, Rudo demands an explanation. Engine reveals that the entire ordeal was a test to determine whether Rudo possessed the qualities and abilities of a giver. Feeling satisfied with the results, Engine offers him a deal. In exchange for answers about the ground and the mysterious power he now wields, Rudo must join the Cleaners. However, still angry, confused, and unwilling to trust anyone, Rudo immediately rejects the offer. The next episode begins with a cleaner dude receiving an unexpected call from Engine. Since Engine rarely contacts him directly, the call immediately catches his attention. Engine fills him in on everything that's happened with Rudo so far, and jokingly mentions that both this guy and Rudo will be having a playdate once the kid's fully recovered. Meanwhile, Rudo is still arguing with Engine at the infirmary. He insists that he never agreed to join the Cleaners, while Engine continues trying to push him in that direction. Their bickering is interrupted by the doctor, who scolds Rudo for wandering into a place called No Man's Land and getting himself captured by the human traffickers Engine had left him with. I think you're blaming the wrong guy here, Doc. Afterward, Rudo follows Engine into the hallway and thanks him for paying his medical bills, but makes it clear that his only goal is finding a way back to the sphere. Engine warns him that life on the ground is far more dangerous than he realizes. Hatred towards spherites is common, and if people discover where he came from, he could easily become a target. Before leaving, Engine reminds him of an important lesson. Information on the ground is never free. Everything comes with a price. Later, the two sit down for a meal while Rudo tries a burger and reflects on how different the ground is from what he expected. Rather than being a lifeless wasteland, it has cities, communities, and a culture of its own. Taking the opportunity to educate him, Engine explains the concept of anima, the mysterious energy that powers the world and can manifest in various forms, including the dangerous trash beasts. These beasts all have a core made of anima. He also talks about vital instruments, like his umbrella and the gloves Rudo is wearing. Vital instruments are powered by anima, and only anima is effective in fighting against more anima. Once the lesson is over, Engine once again suggests that Rudo join the cleaners. Rudo assumes this means Engine knows a way back to the sphere, but is disappointed when Engine admits he has no idea how to get him home. However, he mentions that his boss might know something, giving Rudo a small reason to consider the offer of joining. Before they can continue though, Engine receives a call through his choker, which is a communicator worn around the neck, and he gets summoned elsewhere. On his way out, he tosses Rudo a bag of money earned from selling his spherite clothes.
You don't have to thank me or anything. Charity is its own reward.
Get back here so I can kick your ass!
Unfortunately, Rudo barely has time to celebrate before a cat snatches the bag and runs off. Chasing after it, Rudo grabs a nearby stick to pin the cat down and recover his money. However, turns out the stick belongs to someone else. That someone is Zanka, the cleaner Engine had called earlier. The stick is actually Zanka's vital instrument, and he's furious that Rudo grabbed it without permission. The situation nearly escalates into a fight, but Rudo remembers Regto's advice about understanding others instead of immediately responding with anger. He manages to calm Zanka down, and the two begin talking. When Rudo explains that his gloves are his vital instrument, Zanka is impressed. However, things quickly go downhill when Rudo awkwardly attempts to smile.
What made you decide to join our band of weirdos?
I wouldn't say I joined. It's kind of more like I'm lending a hand until I get what I want from you guys.
Jeez, that's literal nightmare fuel. Remembering how Regto used to tell him to smile more often, he tries to imitate Zanka's smiley expression, but only ends up looking threatening. Zanka assumes he's being mocked, and the misunderstanding spirals into another argument. The tension eventually erupts into a fight. Rudo grabs a nearby metal object and uses it as a weapon, prompting Zanka to wonder if Rudo's true ability allows him to temporarily turn anything he touches into a vital instrument. Although Zanka admits the ability is remarkable, he points out that raw power means little without proper skill and training. Using his vital instrument, called a Staff, Zanka completely overwhelms Rudo. The battle ends with Rudo slammed into the ground and thoroughly defeated. While examining the residue left on Rudo's improvised weapon, Zanka makes a horrifying discovery. It's covered in feces. Ew. The object Rudo had been using the entire time is revealed to be a plunger, and what follows is pure Looney Tunes chaos. As Zanka desperately tries to explain what a plunger is actually used for, Rudo assumes he's joking and starts chasing him around with it. The chase spills through the streets, spreading filth everywhere, until Zanka finally trips and ends up covered in the very thing he was trying to avoid. Nasty. Soon afterward, Engine arrives in a car and finds both of them sitting in awkward silence. Zanka is completely traumatized, while Rudo is equally embarrassed. Engine laughs so hard that he can barely contain himself as they drive away together. Once he finally calms down, Engine reveals why he brought them together in the first place. Zanka will be Rudo's trainer. Despite his earlier humiliation, Zanka quietly takes pride in being recognized as one of the cleaner's best. Engine then introduces another passenger riding in the back of the vehicle. A girl named Rio suddenly sits up and reveals she came specifically because she wanted to meet Rudo. Without any hesitation, she begins touching his hair and bombarding him with questions, leaving the already overwhelmed Rudo completely flustered as they continue their journey back to Cleaner headquarters. The next episode begins with Engine, Rio, Rudo, and Zanka arriving at the Cleaner's headquarters. As soon as they enter, they find a woman casually eating at the reception desk. This is Semyu. And despite her relaxed appearance, she immediately makes an impression on Rudo by effortlessly skewering 2 flies out of the air with her fork.
Mr. Natural, it's nice to meet you in the flesh.
Whoa! The display leaves him a little more than unsettled. Engine explains that Semyu needs to examine Rudo. She introduces herself and mentions that Engine has already told her about him. Curious about his abilities, she decides to take a closer look. Engine reveals that Semyu's vital instrument is her pair of glasses, which allows her to see a person's true nature. When she uses them on Rudo, however, she's visibly shaken. Our boy Rudo is not normal. With the evaluation complete, Engine takes Rudo deeper into headquarters. Along the way, he explains how the cleaners are organized, with roughly 100 members divided into combatants, hellguards, or just guards, and supporters. The hellguards are the primary law enforcement on the ground, while supporters are non-powered ordinary humans who assist the combatants in fighting off trash beasts. Engine then leads Rudo to the boss's office. Before they enter, Engine gives Rudo some advice. He reminds him that information always comes at a price and warns him not to ask about the boss's vital instrument. No one knows what it is or even what it does. Despite that mystery, the entire organization respects and follows the boss without question.
None of us cleaners follow the boss because we're scared or weak. It's because we want to. Power can't win that kind of trust.
Interesting. Rudo prepares himself for a tense meeting, only to discover that the office is completely empty. Moments later, Semyu appears and informs them that the boss is currently away on a business trip and won't be returning anytime soon. As Rudo processes the disappointing news, Rio overhears the conversation and suggests he accompany her on a job. It'll help him learn more about the cleaners while he waits for the boss to return. Oh, good idea. Before they leave, Semyu briefs the group on the assignment. She lightly scolds Engine for forgetting to explain the difference between safe zones and polluted zones, then fills Rudo in herself. Safe zones are the habitable areas, while polluted zones are inhospitable. In fact, some polluted zones are so bad that they've been dubbed No Man's Land, such as the one where Engine found Rudo. She also gives Rudo a gas mask, explaining that the air in polluted zones can be dangerous. Soon afterward, Rio, Rudo, and several supporters arrive at a small town on the edge of a polluted zone. Descending toward the town's protective barrier, Rudo finally sees the area for himself. Looking out over the wasteland, he realizes it resembles exactly what he once imagined the pit to look like. He wonders whether the people living in the sphere know what truly exists below them, and whether they continue throwing people down despite knowing the truth. In the end, he pushes the thought aside, accepting that the ground is now his reality. Later on, he comes across several workers wearing different uniforms. One of them, a muscular supporter named Gris, introduces himself with a handshake that nearly crushes Rudo's hand. Before their conversation can continue, another supporter reports that trash beasts are approaching. At first, the creatures seem manageable, but more and more begin to emerge. Then, a massive trash beast suddenly appears, dwarfing the others. Rudo looks to Rio for assurance, only to discover that she's just as surprised as he is. Unlike Rudo, however, she looks excited by the challenge. The battle begins immediately. Ryo cuts through waves of smaller trash beasts while coordinating with the supporters. Rudo watches carefully, observing how experienced cleaners work together in combat. As the fight intensifies, a younger supporter called Folo is caught off guard and nearly killed when a surviving trash beast attacks him. Rudo rushes in to help and activates his vital instrument, but hesitates at the critical moment. Before disaster can strike, Ryo arrives and destroys the creature herself. With the smaller threats under control, everyone's attention turns to the giant trash beast. Ryo attacks it repeatedly, but no matter how much damage she deals, the monster continues regenerating. Determined to figure out its weakness, she focuses on its head and eventually discovers a glowing spot hidden inside. Realizing she's found the creature's weak point, she launches herself high into the air and dives straight toward it. With a powerful strike from her vital instrument, the Ripper, she drives her weapon into the glowing core. The giant trash beast immediately disintegrates into dust.
I found your sweet spot!
After the battle, Gris and Rudo return to check on her. Ryo explains that destroying the glowing spot killed the creature. Among the remains, she finds an old box cutter, which appears to have been the source of the monster's power. Gris quickly recognizes it as a vital instrument and wonders how something like that could have ended up inside a trash beast. As the mystery lingers, the episode shifts to an abandoned warehouse. One of the human traffickers Rudo defeated earlier awakens, still remembering the spherite who humiliated him. He soon realizes he isn't alone. Across from him sits a hooded figure shrouded in darkness. When the trafficker demands to know who he is, the stranger slightly turns his head, revealing part of his face before calmly speaking. He only wants one thing: information on the spherite who beat him. The episode ends with the mysterious figure's interest in Rudo hinting at a new threat waiting in the shadows. Episode 5 begins with a party at the cleaner's headquarters. It's supposed to be a welcome party for Rudo, but our boy just isn't in the mood for celebration. Rudo is sitting alone in a corner, clearly bothered by what happened during the last mission. Ryo explains to Zanka that Rudo has been feeling discouraged after their encounter with the giant trash beast. When Zanka asks about the creature, Ryo reveals that the beast's core was not made from ordinary anima, but from a vital instrument. This explains why it was far stronger and stranger than normal trash beasts. She briefly admits that dealing with threats like that makes even her feel unprepared, before quickly returning to her cheerful personality. During the party, Gris approaches Rudo and properly introduces himself, while praising him for his actions during the mission. Rudo, as usual, brushes it off and insists that he did nothing special. Gris refuses to let him dismiss himself and reminds him that saving Folo was still saving someone's life. Real talk. Gris then opens up about his own experiences. He explains that supporters are often looked down on because they lack giver abilities, with some even treating them as expendable. But despite that, people like Folo continue doing their jobs because every role matters. Gris tells Rudo that the important question is not what others expect from him, but what he actually wants for himself. Rudo admits that he doesn't know that answer yet. Gris reassures him that figuring that out takes time and reminds him that he still has a life ahead of him, even if he's now living on the ground. The emotional moment is quickly interrupted when Engine suddenly drops his weight onto Rudo, complaining about being tired and asking why Rudo isn't eating. Ryo and Zanka join in, pushing Rudo to stop isolating himself and enjoy the party. The celebration continues with music playing, while a cleaner named Job begins painting graffiti on a wall. Engine loudly praises him as genius, while the others complain about the smell of the paint. As Job finishes his artwork, the episode suddenly cuts away to a darker scene. In an abandoned warehouse, the human trafficker from earlier is shown badly injured and begging for his life. the mysterious hooded figure appears and cheerfully kills him, explaining that he's interested in Rudo and wants something valuable from him.
He's from the sphere and he's a giver. Real one of a kind. He's gonna make a great souvenir.
Back at the cleaner's headquarters, Semyu returns to her desk and receives a phone call. Later, she gathers Rudo, Zanka, Gris, and several others to discuss a new request. A merchant has reported being attacked by an abnormal beast, and his cargo was stolen. However, the cargo turns out to be something far more important: a person who fell from the sphere. Since Rudo believes this may lead to answers about the sphere, he agrees to join. Engine is unavailable, so Semyu decides that Zanka will take charge of the mission. On the way to their destination, Zanka confidently declares that they must give the mission everything they have. Rudo notices that Gris is not carrying any obvious weapons and asks about it. Gris explains that he prefers fighting with his bare hands. Follow then reveals that Gris carries a prayer charm and prays before every mission.
Nothing special, it didn't cost much. So I figured, why not? Can't hurt to pray.
That's interesting. Better keep an eye on that prayer charm. When they arrive at their destination, the merchant quickly guides them inside a building. However, Rudo immediately becomes suspicious and realizes something is wrong. The supposed spherite they were meant to rescue turns out to be nothing more than a doll. Before they can react, the floor collapses beneath them, sending the group falling into a lower area. The merchant reveals himself to be a clay creation and disappears. Two raiders then appear, revealing that the entire situation was a trap designed to capture Rudo. Ugh. Damn it. Gris explains that the raiders are a dangerous group of givers known for carrying out unethical experiments. He orders the supporters to search for an escape route, assigns Follow to protect Rudo, and stays behind with Zanka to fight. Rudo tries to help, but Gris refuses, unwilling to put him in danger. This only reinforces Rudo's belief that everyone sees him as a burden. To be fair, they're not exactly wrong. Zanka faces the raiders and jokes that everyone seems to be after Rudo lately. The raiders reveal their true goal. They want Rudo because they believe he knows a way to travel between the sphere and the ground. Well, if he knew that, he wouldn't even be here! The female raider uses a shovel-based vital instrument that allows her to control mud and create clay copies of herself, while the other attacks using snowshoes. At first, Zanka struggles against their tricks, but he quickly figures out how their abilities work. Using his assist staff, Zanka sends vibrations through the ground to locate the real raiders among the copies. Once he identifies them, he easily defeats both with a single, powerful attack. However, before he can celebrate, his victory is interrupted. The mysterious hooded figure appears behind him and calmly remarks that defeating Zanka will be just as easy. Oh, damn! In the next episode, Rudo, Chris, Follow, and the other supporters search for a way out. They eventually find an emergency exit leading to a stairwell. Gris sends several supporters outside so they can use their chokers to call for backup, while he and Rudo head back to check on Zanka. As they move through the building, they hear footsteps approaching. Gris assumes Zanka has already defeated the raiders, but instead, the mysterious man from the last episode appears. He immediately focuses on Rudo, calling him the Spherite Giver, and suddenly appears behind him before Rudo can react. The man destroys the exit, revealing that he is actually another raider. Oh boy. When Gris asks what happened to Zanka, the raider ignores the question and reveals that someone powerful is interested in meeting Rudo. When Rudo demands to know what he did to Zanka, the raider says he respected Zanka's strength and spared his life, though he did poison him. The raider then activates his vital instrument, creating sharp claw-like weapons from his hands. He confidently says he will take Rudo without hurting him, but Gris and Folo immediately attack to protect him. However, the raider easily avoids their attacks and knocks them away. He acknowledges that Folo has potential, but insults Gris, calling him useless. Despite this, Gris stands back up and refuses to abandon Rudo. He declares that protecting his comrades is what matters, regardless of his own strength. The raider mocks him for being a supporter, trying to protect someone stronger. When Rudo tells Gris to retreat, the raider suddenly strikes Gris through the chest with his claws. That looks bad. He claims Gris is already finished, and coldly says that weak people are worth less than the stains they leave behind.
The weak are worth less than the stain they leave behind.
Ouch. Seeing Gris collapse causes Rudo's mind to break. The world around him becomes distorted as he relives the moment Gris was attacked. As he reaches for Gris's fallen amulet, his memories shift back to Regto. In the past, a younger Rudo struggled with his feelings that he couldn't understand. Overwhelmed by frustration and anger, he repeatedly hurt himself by hitting his head against a wall. Regto realized that Rudo's pain came from feeling abandoned by his parents and not knowing how to deal with those emotions. Rather than scolding him, Regto decided to help him find something that gave him purpose. He took Rudo outside and encouraged him to search for something he truly cared about, believing that the emptiness inside him would eventually be filled. They tried many different activities, but nothing seemed to interest Rudo. However, while walking through the city, Rudo saw a wealthy spherite throwing away old belongings in the trash. Among the discarded items, Rudo found a broken mask. The kid became emotional, insisting that it was wrong to throw something away when it could still be repaired. Regto realized that Rudo had a unique ability. He could see the value in things that others had already abandoned. Back in the present, Rudo grabs Gris's amulet and activates it. The amulet transforms and becomes massive, forming a protective shield behind Rudo. Despite being badly injured, Gris realizes the truth behind Rudo's ability. His power isn't simply creating vital instruments, it also allows him to bring out the hidden value within objects. The raider becomes fascinated and asks what kind of power the amulet has. But Rudo ignores him and thanks Gris for reminding him of what he truly wanted to do. The kid refuses to let his anger control him and declares that he will defeat the raider. Now impressed, the raider introduces himself as Jabber and praises Rudo for being a powerful giver. He then challenges him to fight seriously. Meanwhile, Folo desperately tries to stop Gris's bleeding. Gris realizes that Rudo was unable to properly use his power before because he was consumed by rage. But now, his emotions are under control. Jabber goes for the attack, but Rudo doesn't move. Feeling confused, Jabber wonders why none of his attacks are landing. Rudo explains that because Gris is a devout man, his amulet carries his wish, which is for everyone to return safely without being injured. Using the amulet's power, Rudo imagines a defense where hostile attacks cannot reach him. Jabber points out that this should also prevent Rudo from attacking, but Rudo explains that the amulet is the one avoiding the attacks, not him. Since the amulet cannot attack, Rudo fights using his own fists, the same way Gris does.
So instead, I'll use his weapon of choice and knock you out with my fist. Now eat this!
Rudo and Jabber exchange blows, but instead of being frustrated, Jabber becomes even more excited by Rudo's strength. The battle continues as Jabber destroys the surroundings and launches surprise attacks. However, the amulet senses his hostility and guides Rudo away from danger. Rudo eventually overwhelms him and tells him to leave. Rather than being angry, Jabber laughs and points out something he noticed. The amulet only reacts when the attack carries genuine hostility. Jabber then reveals his own vital instrument, Mankira. explaining that his claws contain a powerful neurotoxin. To test Rudo's defense, he stabs himself with his own weapon, wondering if the amulet will still protect Rudo once he loses consciousness and begins acting purely on instinct.
No thoughts, no intent, just mindless violence. What's your instrument gonna do?
Jabber collapses, but moments later his body suddenly moves again, and he violently slashes through the wall behind him. Things are about to get way more interesting. The following episode picks up with Jabber suddenly regaining consciousness. After gasping for air, he lets out a terrifying scream and charges toward Rudo again. Dude's acting like a zombie at this point. Rudo tries using the amulet vital instrument to block Jabber's attacks, but it fails, because Jabber has zero hostility in this zombie state. With no other choice, Rudo uses his own strength to redirect Jabber and throw him away. Jabber continues overwhelming Rudo until assist staff suddenly restrains him. Zanka makes a surprise appearance, looking irritated, and complains that Jabber ran away before they could finish their fight. You don't look so good right now, Zanka. Despite being exhausted and badly injured, Zanka insists he's fine anyway. Rudo explains that the amulet is no longer working properly because Jabber exploited a loophole in his ability. Zanka quickly analyzes the situation and comes up with a risky plan. If he attacks Rudo, the amulet should automatically move Rudo out of danger, allowing Zanka's assist staff to attack Jabber. It's a wild gamble. When Rudo hesitates, Zanka mocks him, telling him to stop acting weak and to suck it up. Zanka immediately puts the plan into action by attacking Rudo for real. The amulet reacts exactly as expected, forcing Rudo to move and giving Zanka the opening he needs to strike Jabber.
Wow, my insanely dumb idea actually worked.
Zanka?
Huh?
You jerk! You legit tried to hurt me, didn't you?
Surprised that the strategy is working, they repeat the move several times. However, Jabber regains consciousness in the middle of the fight. He attacks again, but Zanka manages to hit him one last time before collapsing from exhaustion. With Jabber finally down, Zanka can barely move. At the same time, Rudo's amulet begins breaking apart. Rudo desperately tries to hold it together because he planned to return it to Gris, but he collapses after realizing Jabber's claws left a wound on his back. Surprisingly, Jabber stands up once again, completely unfazed. He explains that his two claws have different toxins. One suppresses pain when used precisely, while the other causes paralysis.
In small doses, my left claws make all the pain go away. And that's just one of their tricks.
And somehow, Bro can zombify and unzombify himself. He then paralyzes Zanka with more toxins before shifting his focus to Rudo. Jabber carries him onto the surface, only to discover that the building that once stood on the ground has disappeared. The reason is revealed to be Rio, who used her vital instrument to cut the entire structure apart. An umbrella suddenly strikes Jabber, knocking him away and freeing Rudo. At the same time, Engine appears with the other cleaners, joking that the area could use some serious cleaning.
Looks like you could use a serious cleaning.
Engine explains that some of the supporters managed to escape earlier and contact the cleaners' HQ for help. Surrounded by the cleaners, Jabber realizes he's at a disadvantage. Instead of being afraid, he becomes excited by the hostility directed at him. Dude's a gosh dang masochist. Jabber admits that he's in trouble, but says he can't leave without completing his mission to take Rudo. Just as he prepares to fight again, a mysterious woman appears behind him and restrains him. Jabber recognizes her as Chthoni. She tells him that it's time to leave, but Jabber refuses until she whispers that their boss was smiling. The moment he hears this, Jabber becomes strangely happy and calms down. What in the world? Suddenly, a portal opens nearby, allowing them to escape. Before leaving, Jabber tells Rudo that he enjoyed their fight. He notices the markings on Rudo's gloves and reveals that Rudo possesses an object from that series as well.
You got an object from that series too? Who'd have thunk? That's straight up crazy!
Something that'll definitely interest his boss, whatever that means. In episode 8, after the battle with Jabber, Rudo sits alone outside the cleaner's headquarters, overwhelmed by guilt. He believes he failed to save Gris, who risked his life to protect him. Engine finds him there and tries to encourage him, praising Rudo for successfully using a vital instrument. But Rudo pushes back and tells him to stop trying to make him feel better. But when Rudo enters the medical bay, he's shocked to see Gris alive. Gris congratulates him for awakening the true potential of his power, while Engine teases Rudo for assuming that Gris had died. Gris explains that he survived because of the cleaner's medical team, especially Aisha Stilza, the cleaner's only healer and a giver. Engine then explains that the cleaners now have another problem: the raiders. Their attack was a clear declaration of war, and the cleaners need to understand who they are and what they want. At that moment, another cleaner arrives and mentions the raiders' strange reference to a border connected to the sphere. Engine introduces him as Arca Corvus, the leader of the cleaners. Arca explains that Rudo's original goal of returning to the sphere would normally not be enough reason to join them. However, after risking his life for the cleaners and proving that he shares their values, Arca decides that Rudo has earned his place. He officially welcomes Rudo into the cleaners. Hey, congrats, little man. Later, Arca explains more about the mysterious border separating the sphere from the world below. According to rumors, anyone who tries to cross it dies. However, there's a story about a woman living near a no-man's land who claims she's seen people fall from the sphere, and even someone who could travel between both worlds without dying. For Rudo, who's now sporting a cleaner's uniform, this could be the first real clue about returning home. Despite the danger, he immediately decides to investigate it. Before Rudo can rush into action, Folo tries to stop him from immediately searching for the mysterious woman. Engine also steps in, explaining that entering no man's land without preparation would be suicide.
Soloing in no man's land is suicide.
So what the hell were you doing when we met?
He reminds Rudo that the cleaners don't just fight trash beasts. They gather information and investigate threats too. When Rudo questions how the raiders can also be givers, Engine explains that being a giver does not depend on whether someone is good or evil. Rudo reflects on his own assumptions, realizing that he still has much to learn. Engine tells him to rest before attempting anything dangerous. However, resting proves difficult for Rudo. Rio suddenly appears and gives him a tour of the headquarters. Compared to his life in the sphere, Rudo is amazed by how comfortable everything feels here. He tells Rio about his past, how he survived by collecting discarded items and how Regto raised him. Rio then introduces him to a kid's biggest weakness: sweets. Engine warns Rudo not to overdo it, but Rudo becomes obsessed with the taste and keeps eating. A little bit later, Zanka hears Engine and Rio discussing how the sweets supply has disappeared. When he investigates, he finds a strange, enormous, round creature in the hallway. Thinking that it's a trash beast, Zanka prepares to attack, only for this monster to reveal itself as Rudo, who's eaten so much that he's become completely bloated.
Some fat trash beast stuck in HQ!
It's me.
That is crazy. Later, the cleaners begin training Rudo. Engine, Zanka, and Rio help him understand his vital instrument. Rudo struggles to activate his ability until Zanka realizes that his power works best on objects that have been discarded or broken. When Rudo picks up a broken frame, he successfully transforms it into a weapon. However, trying to use multiple objects at once causes his body extreme strain. Engine explains that while Rudo's gloves are incredibly high quality, his body hasn't caught up with their power yet. He also teaches Rudo that a vital instrument becomes stronger when the object is treated with care and given meaning. Zanka begins to suspect that Rudo's gloves are part of a larger series of special vital instruments. Ryo believes that objects like Gris's amulet did not truly disappear because of Rudo's power. The amulet simply fulfilled its final purpose. Rudo finally understands that his ability isn't about using and destroying things. It's about giving meaning back to objects that others threw away. When the others ask if he named his gloves yet, Rudo struggles to answer.
I can't believe I've never thought about that.
Well, I don't think you're gonna find a name by gawking at him.
And the episode ends with the raiders returning to their hideout. Their leader is reflecting on several terms, like the Cleaners, Vital Instruments, Rudo, and the Watchmen series. More on that later. We then see the symbol of the raider leader's jackets, an emblem identical to the mark on Rudo's gloves, hinting at a deeper connection between Rudo, his power, and the raiders. In episode 9, Rudo wakes up late at night and quietly washes his gloves at the sink, wincing as the pain in his hands returns. While headed back to his room around 4 a.m., he's surprised to find Ryo waiting inside. She explains that her room is directly above his and that she climbed through his window after hearing strange noises, worried that something happened to him. When Ryo asks about his hands, Rudo bitterly says she would have to ask his terrible parents to understand. Ryo sympathizes, commenting that parents can leave behind both good and painful things before leaving him alone. The following day, Arca informs Engine that until Rudo's mask is complete, they should continue preparing for their mission, which is to search for some mysterious Lady of the Forbidden Zone, aka the woman from No Man's Land. Engine explains to Rudo that cleaners entering pollution zones need special masks for protection. The mask is made by an artisan, but unfortunately, the creator has a habit of delaying projects. Since the mask isn't ready, Arca decides that they'll first visit Canvas Town, aka the City of Graffiti, to obtain a protective charm. Semu explains that pollution zones are unpredictable and many cleaners die from trash beast attacks. To reduce the danger, a powerful giver paints protective spells onto cleaners before they enter dangerous areas. Rudo is confused about the idea of someone painting protection onto people, but Semu explains that every giver has their own method of using their powers. Before leaving, Engine introduces the team joining the mission to search for the mysterious Lady of the Forbidden Zone.
From Akuta, we've got your buddy Zanka, the lovely Ryo, and of course yours truly. From Eager, we've got Delman and also Tamsi.
Engine explains that missions into the Forbidden Zone normally require more givers rather than supporters because of the dangers involved. The group eventually travels towards Canvas Town in silence. When they arrive, Rudo is amazed at the city. Massive walls covered in colorful graffiti surround the area, creating a completely different atmosphere from what we expected. Rudo asks one of the cleaners, Tamsi, if all cities look like this. And Tamsi explains that the walls are actually barriers protecting people from the trash that falls from the sphere. Those who live outside the protected areas are often killed by the constant rain of garbage. At the entrance of the town, we see two visitors struggling to enter because an invisible barrier is blocking them. Meanwhile, the cleaners just walk through without trouble. Engine explains that the barrier only allows people inside if they have no harmful intentions. Inside Canvas Town, Rudo is fascinated by the endless artwork covering the city. The town was created as a place where artists could freely express themselves after graffiti became restricted elsewhere. It was known as the City of Arts. The cleaners are not just there to admire the paintings, though. They're searching for a giver from a family of artists whose ability allows him to place emotions into his artwork. His paintings create protective talismans that defend the city. While walking through the town, a child accidentally bumps into Engine and runs away after apologizing. A man then appears and recognizes the cleaners, revealing himself to be the mayor of Canvas Town. Engine explains that they came to request another protective talisman, but the mayor hesitates before revealing terrible news. The giver who created the charms has died.
So you haven't heard. Job's no longer with us. He died this morning.
The group is then brought to see the body. Engine is shocked and asks what happened. The mayor explains that the giver, Job, often entered pollution zones without protection because he wanted inspiration for his artwork. Eventually, the contamination became too much, and he passed away. Oh, not Job. Nobe. Rudo remembers seeing Job painting before, and Tamsi points out that dying from pollution is actually a fairly ordinary fate in their world. The mayor reveals that Job had already chosen his successor, the same child who bumped into Engine earlier. Their name is Remlin. I'll try as best as I can to refer to them in the third person because Remlin's gender isn't specified. Also, keep in mind that a giver's successor is chosen by the previous generation, though nobody fully understands the process. Once chosen, the successor inherits the vital instrument and awakens their ability. Folo mentions that some people are naturally born with the potential to become givers, though Tamsi adds that inheriting a vital instrument is still unusual. The mayor worries that Remlin may not be ready for such responsibility, especially right after losing Job. The group decides to leave Remlin alone to grieve. But before they go, Remlin suddenly stands up and declares that they're finished mourning.
I'm done! I'm so done!
Oh, well, that was fast. Everyone is surprised as Remlin wipes away their tears, grabs Job's vital instrument, and runs outside. On the rooftop, Remlin explains that Job would not want everyone crying over him. So, they activate the vital instrument, transforming the pen into a brush. As Remlin paints around several spray cans, the artwork comes to life, causing the cans to explode into colorful fireworks across the sky. Remlin declares that Job's life should be celebrated, not mourned, inspiring the entire city to join in. The people of Canvas Town begin painting together, turning the city into a massive celebration of Job's memory. That is so cool. Episode 10 begins with Rudo crashing out after Remlin paints his face to look like a clown during the celebration in Canvas Town. As they talk about their abilities, things only become more confusing. Remlin struggles to explain how their power works, and even Engine loses patience trying to follow their logic. In the end, it becomes clear that their ability is incredibly flexible, changing form and function based entirely on how they choose to express it. After Remlin is done applying the protective charms for the upcoming mission, Rudo thanks them for everything they showed him and promises to visit Canvas Town again someday. On the way back, Engine makes a stop at a massive, junk-filled house as a special gift for Rudo. Before Engine can even explain that he wants Rudo to search for useful objects that could become future weapons, Rudo is already diving headfirst into the mountain of discarded items. He excitedly scrambles through the piles of trash, grabbing anything that catches his eye as if he's discovered a treasure trove. Back at Cleaner headquarters, Rudo finally meets August, the eccentric artisan responsible for creating and maintaining the Cleaner's equipment. August proudly reveals that he's completed Rudo's full-face mask. But Rudo is less than thrilled when he learns that August secretly took all of his measurements while he was asleep. During this creepy revelation, the new gear is finally ready. Before the team can depart on their mission, there is one final task to complete. Rudo's choker communication device must be synchronized with the rest of the squad. To do this, every team member pricks a finger and places a drop of blood onto Rudo's device, while Rudo repeats the process for each of theirs. Not entirely pleasant.
Anywho, it's time for you to open yourself up to the group.
Once the ritual's complete, everyone can communicate with one another through their chokers during the mission. The team then sets out for Penta, a dangerous desert region where a no-man's land is located. There, Rudo finally gets the chance to put both his new full face mask and his vital instrument to use. After naming his gloves 3R, he quickly joins the others in clearing out trash beasts across the desert. Meanwhile, far away at Raider headquarters, Jabber asks his boss whether the object they've been searching for is located in Penta. His boss gives only a vague response, saying they'll find out once they arrive there themselves. Back in the desert, the cleaners handle the trash beasts with impressive efficiency, while a supporter, Tome, carefully documents every new creature they encounter, creating detailed notes and sketches for future reference. During one battle, Rudo finds an abandoned keyboard and uses 3R to transform it into a weapon. As he activates his power, a mysterious girl somewhere in the desert suddenly senses it and turns her attention toward him. Unaware that anyone is watching, Rudo continues fighting and eventually defeats a trash beast by using the keyboard's keys like a giant stamp, crushing the creature with a finishing blow. Our boy's a goddamn keyboard warrior. As the team regroups and prepares to continue their search, Rudo notices a figure standing in the distance through the drifting dust and smoke. However, when Delmon, a loudmouth member of the cleaners, and Tamsi call out to Rudo, the figure disappears before anyone else can see it. Moments later, the girl reveals herself and calmly approaches the group. She claims to be the very woman they came for, the mysterious resident of No Man's Land, who supposedly knows secrets about the border between the ground and the sphere. She invites the cleaners to her home, and because she's walking around without a mask, Engine believes it's best to hear her out before deciding how to proceed. Confident that he can handle any trouble if it arises, he leads the group inside, but the situation takes a sudden and alarming turn. Just as the conversation begins, Engine's body gives out without warning. He drops to his knees and collapses onto the floor. What the hell? As Rudo watches on in shock, the mysterious woman simply smiles, leaving the episode on a damn cliffhanger. Episode 11 begins by rewinding the story 1 hour, revealing exactly how the mysterious girl named Amo managed to bring Engine to his knees. Amo cheerfully leads the cleaners to her home, a massive tower standing alone in the middle of the desert. As they make their way inside and climb to the upper floors, Amo repeatedly asks everyone to remove their masks. Although hesitant at first, the group eventually gives in. Seeing their faces fills Amo with delight, and she happily compliments each of them. Seeing an opportunity, Engine signals for Rudo to speak. Rudo explains that he's searching for someone capable of traveling between the ground and the sphere, and asks if Amo can help him find that person. Before he can even finish, however, Amo abruptly changes the subject and starts asking everyone about their crushes. The question leaves the group confused, but Engine assumes it must be the price of obtaining information. Unfortunately, the more they try to answer, the more irritated Amo becomes. She repeatedly mutters that everything feels wrong and grows increasingly upset. To her, it seems that nobody actually wants to talk to her. They only want something from her. Trying to calm the situation, Engine boldly claims that he likes her. Instead of helping, his lie only makes things worse. Amo immediately calls for her big man to deal with him. Without warning, Delmon turns his hose, aka his vital instrument, on Engine, drenching him. The attack instantly drops Engine to his knees, bringing the story back to the point where the previous episode ended. The cleaners are stunned. None of them understand what just happened. While trying to make sense of the situation, Rudo notices that Amo's boots bear the same symbol found on his gloves.
Oh crap! That's the same mark as my gloves!
Amo pays no attention to the discovery and simply repeats her question, once again asking everyone about the person they love. Zanka attempts to confront her next, but his efforts end in disaster as well. After he insults her, Amo bursts into tears and Delmon nearly crushes him in response. To everyone's shock, Delmon begins speaking about Amo with complete devotion, declaring that she is the reason he fights and that protecting her is his sacred duty. Tamsi quickly realizes something's wrong. Delmon doesn't appear to be under direct mind control, yet he's behaving entirely out of character. His vital instrument, a hose capable of causing anything it waters to grow larger, can be extremely dangerous. If used on a person, it can make their body swell until it bursts. Delmon would never normally use such a power against his own allies, making his actions even more alarming. As the tension rises, Amo reveals that another one of her fans is present. Suddenly, Rudo begins experiencing vivid hallucinations. He sees the guards from the sphere mocking and insulting him just as they did in the past. The visions are so overwhelming that he can barely react to Delmon's attacks, and only avoids being hit thanks to Tamsi's intervention. Determined to stop Amo, Rio rushes towards her. Zanka immediately warns her not to act recklessly, but she ignores him. Believing that someone within the group has already fallen completely under Amo's influence, Rio decides she can't trust anyone until she discovers who it is. As she's distracted, Delmon's next attack tears through a wall and nearly strikes her. Watching the chaos unfold, Amo laughs. She points out that none of them can fully trust one another and insists that everything would be much easier if they simply talked to her. Talk about what, you psycho? Meanwhile, Rudo's hallucinations have become stronger. He begins seeing Zanka and Tamsi as the cruel guards from the sphere. Zanka notices a strange scent in the air, and Amo explains that memories are deeply connected to smell. Moments later, she transforms in Rudo's vision into Chiwa, the girl he once cared about.
If you don't want to talk about who you like right now, then Amo will let you smell what they smell like. And then maybe you'll want to talk.
Unable to distinguish illusion from reality, Rudo starts shouting at the image before him. The others quickly realize that Amo's power is affecting him as well. She finally explains her ability. She releases a scent from her boots that causes people to see the person they love most. Believing that they've figured out her trick, Tamsi and Zanka immediately put their masks on, confident that victory is now within reach. Unfortunately, the situation's far from under control. Still trapped in his hallucination, Rudo rushes forward to protect Amo, aka the illusion of Chiwa, declaring that he now has the power to protect the people he cares about. To make matters worse, both Rio and Folo appear to have fallen under Amo's influence as well. Realizing the entire team is rapidly losing control of the situation, Tamsi decides there's no other choice. Reluctantly, he prepares to use his own vital instrument against his fellow cleaners, even though the last thing he wants is to fight his friends.
I'd hoped to never use my instrument on a friend. So this is on you.
Episode 12 opens with Delmon lost in a beautiful memory. In his mind, he's tending a small garden for his wife. Since flowers are almost non-existent on the ground, even a single blooming plant is enough to make her happy. However, the peaceful image suddenly changes as his wife's face fades away and is replaced with Amo's. At this point, Amo still has Delmon, Folo, Rudo, and Rio under her influence. Before they can attack, however, Tamsi activates his vital instrument, a distaff called Tokushin. His distaff releases ropes that weave themselves into a giant nest, trapping all 4 of Amo's controlled victims. The harder they struggle, the tighter the ropes become. Even so, Tamsi knows the fight is far from over. Amo remains completely unconcerned about the suffering of those under her control. She confidently declares that they'll continue obeying her no matter how much pain they endure. In response, Tamsi comes up with a more drastic solution. He winds the ropes together, wrapping the 4 cleaners into a massive bundle, while using the remaining strands to imprison Amo herself. For a moment, Tamsi and Zanka believe they've gained the upper hand, but when Amo bursts into tears and cries out for someone to save her, Rudo and the others immediately begin struggling again. They push themselves so hard that blood starts pouring out from their bodies, yet they refuse to stop moving. Realizing there's no other option, Tamsi unleashes his final move. Slamming his staff into the ground, he causes the enormous bundle of rope to spin at incredible speeds. The rotating mass drills straight through the floor, tearing apart sections of the tower and sending everyone crashing to the ground below. Even Zanka is horrified by what he's done.
Oh, Tamsi. What the hell, man? That was way too far.
As he argues with Tamsi, accusing him of killing their teammates, Tamsi calmly reminds him about the protective spell Remlin placed on them before the mission. The spell was designed to protect them from harm, even injuries that would normally be fatal. Moments later, Tamsi's faith in the spell is proven correct. One by one, the cleaners begin standing back up. Even Amo is stunned when Engine rises to his feet as if nothing happened. Turns out, Engine had regained consciousness some time earlier and had simply been waiting for the perfect opportunity. Taking advantage of the confusion, he removes one of Amo's boots, instantly disabling her ability. As everyone recovers, Tamsi explains the situation to Delmon, who's devastated to learn the truth. Under Amo's influence, he genuinely believed the woman he loved had returned to him. Zanka remarks that Amo's power is especially cruel to people who have lost someone important. Looking around, it's clear that every cleaner affected by her ability is struggling with painful emotions. Elsewhere, Arka asks Semu what exactly she saw inside Rudo during her earlier examination. Semu explains that what caught her attention wasn't his power, but something far deeper. According to her, there's something growing inside of him unlike anything she's ever seen before. As she speaks, the scene returns to Rudo. He removes his mask and walks directly toward Amo. Mistaking his approach for affection, Amo smiles confidently. Her confidence vanishes a second later when Rudo punches her square in the face. Whoa, I did not see that coming. He tackles her to the ground and begins furiously beating her, unleashing all of the anger and frustration he's been carrying. At the same time, Semu elaborates on her concerns. She describes the presence within Rudo as something resembling a curse, a force that could potentially grow powerful enough to destroy the entire world. The episode briefly visualizes this as a strange red egg-like object hidden deep inside of him. Gris and Engine quickly pull Rudo away before he completely loses control. Even then, he looks almost demonic in his rage. When Gris tries to calm him down, Rudo argues that Amo tried to kill them all and laughed while doing it. To him, she deserves everything she's getting.
She just looks helpless. But inside, she's laughing at us. She played with us like dolls because that's all we are to her. She deserves a hell of a lot more than I gave her.
Pretty valid crash out, if you ask me. Engine, however, knows exactly what Rudo needs to hear. He asks a simple question. If they hurt Amo now, what happens to the information they came here for? The question finally snaps Rudo out of his fury. Realizing his mistake, he leaves with Engine to cool off and talk. During their conversation, Rudo reflects on his past. Back in the sphere, he was quick to anger and often lashed out violently. To avoid causing trouble, he learned to suppress his emotions instead of dealing with them. Now, after everything that's happened on the ground, he realizes he hasn't changed as much as he thought. Deep down, he's still the same angry boy he was years ago. Engine responds by sharing some of his own experiences and mistakes. He makes Rudo understand that everyone has flaws that they need to confront. The important thing is recognizing them and continuing to move forward instead of pretending they don't exist. Those words help lift some of the weight off of Rudo's shoulders. Being calmer, he stands up and prepares to apologize alongside Engine. Meanwhile, Tome takes a different approach with Amo. Removing her mask, she sits down and tries to have a genuine conversation, mentioning that she enjoys stories about romance. The topic immediately catches Amo's interest as she begins talking more openly. During their conversation, Amo reveals an important piece of information. She mentions an angel who gave her the boots she uses as her vital instrument. More importantly, this mysterious person was supposedly capable of traveling freely between the ground and the sphere. With that revelation, the cleaners finally obtained the lead they came searching for, bringing Rudo one step closer to uncovering a path back to the world above. Episode 13 begins by revealing Amo's tragic past. As a child, Amo's mother introduced her to a man she described as someone who would love her forever. To young Amo, it sounded like something wonderful. What she couldn't understand at the time was that her mother had actually sold her to a predator. Yikes. The man took Amo to the tower where she currently lives and surrounded her with gifts and attention. As the years passed, he explained that he obtained those gifts through his work. He was both a trafficker and a giver, yet people constantly looked down on him, calling him creepy and treating him like an outcast. As you should be treated, you creep. Whenever he felt upset, he would insist on performing a special ritual with Amo to make himself feel better. Ugh. As Amo grew older, she began to realize how uncomfortable those rituals made her feel. Her heart would race, she'd struggle to breathe, and she wanted them to stop. But whenever she voiced her concerns, the man convinced her those feelings were simply what love felt like. Too young and naive to understand the truth, Amo unconsciously filtered out the horror of her situation and accepted his explanation. Everything changed one day when two masked intruders suddenly burst into the room. One of them wore the distinctive mask as the person responsible for Regto's death. The trafficker tried to defend himself using his vital instrument, the very boots Amo now possesses, but he was completely outmatched. The masked figures quickly overwhelmed him and left him beaten on the floor. Before leaving, one of the strangers handed the boots to Amo and told her that they suited her far better than their current owner. They instructed her to keep them safe until the right time came. Moments later, the two figures created wings and flew away, looking almost like angels as they disappeared into the sky.
Hold on, are you?
Mesmerized by the sight, Amo barely noticed what had happened to the trafficker. However, when he saw her holding the boots, he flew into a rage. Furious that his vital instrument had responded to someone else, he began viciously attacking Amo. The story then briefly returns to the present. Rudo has come to apologize to Amo for how he treated her earlier and wants to hear the rest of her story. Amo continues to explain that the trafficker was shocked to see the boots react to her. To him, it was impossible. To Amo, however, it was proof that the boots had never truly belonged to him in the first place. The argument between them eventually escalated into a fight. During the struggle, Amo accidentally pushed him out of the tower. He fell to his death, leaving the boots solely in her possession. With her story finished, the cleaners shift the conversation back to the mysterious angel who gave her the boots. Unfortunately, Amo knows very little. She has no idea how the person crossed the border between the sphere and the ground, nor does she know where they came from. However, she does reveal one crucial detail. She saw the angel again about a month earlier, around the same time Rudo arrived on the ground. As Amo sketches the angel from memory, Rudo immediately notices something shocking. The figure is wearing the exact same mask as Regto's killer. The revelation nearly sends Rudo spiraling into rage once again. In his mind, he imagines the angel and their partner beaten and bleeding beside Regto's grave.
And the last thing you'll ever do is apologize to Regto at his grave.
His thoughts grow darker and darker until Amo interrupts him. She tells Rudo that the two of them are actually very similar. According to Amo, their vital instruments, the boots and the gloves, chose them because they were incomplete people. The boots helped her face the truth about her past and understand what had really been done to her. After that realization, she spent years trying to form genuine connections with others, but every attempt ended in disappointment. Because of that, she doesn't blame Rudo for losing control. She believes most people only use their hands to hurt others rather than connect with them. Rudo quietly considers her words before offering a different perspective. Instead of giving up, he suggests that they learn how to form those connections together. Extending his hand, he offers her friendship.
We can learn how to use our hands to help others, to connect.
You're already doing it.
Perhaps the first time in a long while, Amo genuinely smiles. Soon afterward, the cleaners prepare to leave. Amo stays behind to sort through her feelings and begin moving forward with her life. Before departing, Rudo promises that he'll come back and visit her again, which makes her genuinely happy. Unfortunately, that happiness is short-lived. After everyone leaves, Amo returns to her tower, already thinking excitedly about seeing Rudo again someday. But as she closes the door behind her, someone suddenly appears in her room. The audience never sees the attack directly. Instead, only Amo's terrified screams echo through the tower. Later, Jabber is shown emerging from the desert alone, strongly implying that he was the attacker. The episode ends at the Raiders' hideout, where the mysterious leader finally arises from his seat and calmly declares it is the time to begin whatever operation they've been cooking up.
So it begins.
In the next episode, Rudo and the crew are heading back to the Cleaners HQ. However, some of them are still dealing with injuries despite Remlin's protective spell, so they make a stop at Alice Stilza's office. She's a famous doctor and the grandma of August and Aisha. After getting treated, the crew gets back on the road. Engine receives a call from Seimu, telling him to enter the Cleaners HQ through the back. Why? Because a bunch of marauders with RPGs are at the entrance trying to break in. The marauders are looking for the spherite, which is obviously Rudo. But despite the attacks on HQ, the building remains unharmed. This is thanks to a giver who created a magical barrier around HQ. And apart from wasting their time, the marauders get an ass whooping from Seimu.
Hold still, damn it!
When Engine and the others arrive at HQ, they learn from the marauders that someone gave them the info about the spherite at a bar. And so, the cleaners go over to the bar to check if they'll find something. They keep wondering if the marauders were being used by the raiders to gain intel on the Cleaners HQ in preparation for an attack. At the bar, the crew is casually eating as if nothing happened. 3 other cleaners join them on their mission. Meet Gita, a girl in a one-piece pajamas, Dear Santa, a boy with a pacifier in his mouth, and their leader, Bro Santa. As Rudo complains about the cleaners' laid-back attitude in a moment like this, some hooded man strikes a conversation with him. The man asks if someone is after Rudo and his friends, and urges him to be careful about the raiders. According to the man, since the raiders got a new boss, they can do anything to get what they're after. Then, suddenly, he says he remembers what the raiders are after and shows off Amo's boots. Rudo is left speechless as the strange man removes his hood and introduces himself as the new leader of the raiders.
Here's some free intel. The raiders' new leader is the man who's got his hand around your neck.
Whoa. Another person by his side also reveals herself to be Chthoni. Rudo and the cleaners try to attack the raiders' leader, but Chthoni uses her vital instrument to open a portal that captures all of them. The cleaners find themselves in a place filled with manholes, so they're most likely in some underground sewer. The raiders are literally in front of them, including Jabber. The two finally come face to face, with Rudo angrily demanding to know where Amo is. Episode 15 begins with Engine criticizing the raiders' attempts to capture Rudo. In his eyes, they made a major mistake by allowing the other cleaners to get involved as well. However, the raiders' leader, Zodil Typhon, calmly reveals that everything is proceeding exactly as he planned. Without warning, Zodil glances at the clock and triggers the next phase of his scheme. A massive wave of trash suddenly surges through the area, sweeping the cleaners away and dragging them into a vast underground network. Rudo is the only one left behind, as Zodal personally catches him before he can be carried away with the others. As the flood separates the team, Engine does his best to navigate the rushing debris. He initially tries to follow the current, but when the underground passage splits into multiple paths, he's forced to part ways with his allies. At the same time, several portals appear behind the raiders. Each raider steps through a different portal, intentionally separating themselves to face specific members of the cleaner team. Before leaving, Jabber taunts Rudo, joking that he should behave himself while the raiders have some fun with his friends. Now alone with Rudo, Zodal finally introduces himself properly. Rather than attacking, he offers Rudo a surprising proposition. The two of them should work together to destroy the sphere. Although Zodal admits he's never actually seen the sphere for himself, he insists that he and Rudo share the same vision. Rudo immediately rejects the idea and instead demands answers about Amo's fate. Zodal points out that Rudo is avoiding the question he asked first, turning the conversation into a psychological battle rather than a physical one. As the discussion continues, Rudo realizes that speaking with Zodal is completely different from dealing with Amo. Amo was difficult because she struggled to communicate honestly, while Zodal is dangerous because he constantly traps people with his words and forces them to confront uncomfortable truths. Eventually, Zodal asks Rudo why he joined the cleaners in the first place. When Rudo admits that his ultimate goal is still returning to the sphere, Zodal questions whether he's truly satisfied fighting alongside people who don't share that same objective. Meanwhile, deep underground, Rio regains consciousness and quickly discovers that one of the raiders has been left behind to face her. She realizes the enemy intentionally separated the cleaners and paired each of them with a specific opponent. Elsewhere, it's revealed that Jabber has once again been matched with Zanka. The rematch begins immediately. Jabber charges forward, eager for another fight, while Zanka approaches the battle with a simple mindset: kill or be killed. The two clash evenly at first, trading attacks without either side gaining a clear advantage. During the fight, Jabber notices a strange, bubbling pool of green liquid. Curious, he touches it and immediately burns his hand. Rather than retreating, he becomes excited.
That's hot.
What the hell?
Dude is a crazy masochist. Thanks to his vital instrument's ability, any toxin he comes in contact with can be replicated through his claws. His gloves absorb the substance and begin producing the same corrosive liquid. Jabber gleefully flings the acid-like toxin towards Zanka and challenges him to dodge it all. Instead, Zanka calmly tears up a section of the ground and uses it as a shield. Although a small amount of the liquid still reaches him, he remains unfazed. He then hurls the massive chunk of earth at Jabber, seemingly burying him beneath the rubble. Elsewhere, underground, Engine searches for his assigned opponent. However, the raider refuses to reveal themselves, instead choosing to observe Engine silently from behind some trash. In another section of the underground maze, Santa Bro and Dear Santa encounter a raider dressed like a cowboy. The raider confidently points out that the underground environment blocks choker communication, meaning the cleaners cannot call for reinforcements or coordinate with one another. Rio comes to the same realization but refuses to let it shake her confidence. Her opponent, Noerd, calmly takes out a comb and begins running it through her hair. Watching carefully, Rio quickly deduces that the comb is likely Noerd's vital instrument, and that her powers are somehow connected to her hair. Feeling confident in her own abilities, Rio mocks her opponent and claims that scissors have the perfect advantage against hair-based powers.
I mean, scissors beats hair. Them's the rules. Snip, snip.
Seems like common sense. Unfortunately, the battle does not go as planned. Back at Jabber's battlefield, Zanka immediately realizes something's wrong. There is no way Jabber could have been defeated so easily. His suspicions prove correct moments later. Jabber emerges completely unharmed. The giant boulder never actually struck him. Instead, his gloves reveal their true form. Enormous, monstrous versions of themselves that can expand into powerful defensive structures. Using this hidden ability, Jabber shielded himself from the attack.
Ain't no way swinging that stick around your whole thing, right? Hurry up. I want to get real nasty.
At the same time, Rio finds herself getting overwhelmed by Noword's abilities. It's revealed that Noword's comb generates static electricity, allowing her to charge her hair with powerful electrical energy. She mockingly remarks that perhaps scissors are not such a forgivable matchup after all. The episode ends with all the raiders appearing to have gained the upper hand, leaving the separated cleaners facing some of the toughest fights of their lives. Episode 16 begins with Chthoni observing the ongoing battles from a distance. Using her portals, she monitors each battlefield and takes notes on everything happening between the cleaners and the raiders. One of the battles she watches involves Santa Bro, who's having a surprisingly casual conversation with his opponent. The raider eventually introduces himself as Bundus, and reveals that he joined the raiders purely to achieve his own goals. Bundus explains that he's interested in gathering information. If Bro answers his questions, Bundus promises to reveal part of the raiders' plan. Bro agrees, and Bundus asks about the cleaners' leader, Arca Corvus. The story then cuts back to Arca himself, who's just discovered several cleaners have gone missing. Semu advises him to send more people for support and criticizes him for not wearing his choker. However, Arca remains calm. He explains that he knows an excellent information broker and is confident that he can find out what happened to his missing comrades. Back with Bro and Bundus, the raider continues asking questions about Arca. Surprisingly, none of them are about the cleaners' operations or secrets. Instead, Bundus asks ordinary things: Arca's age, his personality, his likes, and other personal details. Bro is confused by the strange questions but answers anyway. Well, he doesn't reveal much actually, because he barely knows any personal stuff about Arca.
What is Corvus's favorite food?
In exchange, Bundus reveals a major piece of information. The raiders have been creating their own trash beasts, and their plan is to feed the cleaners to these monsters. Bro is excited that he managed to learn such valuable information so easily. However, Bundus points out that his own questions were also important. By learning about Arca as a person, he discovered something interesting. The cleaners' leader hides his true self even from his own allies. Meanwhile, Jabber continues fighting Zanka and becomes increasingly excited. He screams at Zanka for holding back, saying that a real fight only becomes interesting when both sides reveal everything they have. Now that Jabber has discovered the limits of his own power, he wants Zanka to show his hidden abilities as well. However, Zanka silently admits to himself that he may not actually have anything else to reveal.
Show me that monster you got tucked away!
Well, I'm all out of ideas.
At the same time, Zodil continues his psychological attack on Rudo. He explains that after Rudo fought Jabber, the raider told him that he and Rudo had the same smell. That similarity is what first caught Jabber's attention. Eventually, Rudo loses his patience and lashes out. He demands to know why Zodil couldn't simply talk to him instead of attacking the cleaners and dragging everyone into the conflict. But Zodil turns the argument around. He explains that even on the ground, where people suffer because of the trash falling from the sphere, some still worship that garbage as if it were a gift from a higher power. Something that seems completely wrong to one person can become normal to another depending on the world they grew up in. According to Zodil, the beliefs created by a broken system could only produce something poisonous. The only way to break someone free from that mindset is to shock them badly enough that their true nature rises to the surface. Ah, did he just eat a cockroach? Ew. He believes that's what's happened to Rudo during his battle with Jabber. Zodal then brings up Zanka, wondering whether the same kind of awakening will happen to him during his rematch with Jabber, or whether the experience will break him instead. The scene shifts to the battle between Zanka and Jabber. Zanka fights desperately, doing everything possible to avoid Jabber's unpredictable attacks. But this time, Jabber's not only stronger, he's also more careful and strategic. At some point, Zanka damages Jabber's ribs and attacks the same spot repeatedly. For a moment, it looks like Zanka's finally gained control of the fight, but Jabber quickly turns the situation around. Even after being hit, the raider manages to slash Zanka's legs, bringing him back to the ground. Jabber then explains that his claws contain several different toxins, one that numbs his opponents, one that enhances his own enjoyment of the fight, and the corrosive substance he collected earlier. Before Zanka can recover, Jabber drives his claws into him, leaving the cleaner badly wounded. Damn. Episode 17 opens with a look into Zanka's past, long before he became a cleaner. Back then, he was training to become a Hellguard, the elite law enforcement group tasked with protecting the ground. Unlike the cleaners, who mainly deal with trash beasts, the guards are responsible for dealing with dangerous people. At school, Zanka was considered a future Hellguard prodigy. His entire family had served as guards, and because he was the top student in his class, everyone assumed he would follow the same path. His classmates saw themselves as ordinary, while viewing Zanka as someone naturally gifted. Interestingly, Zanka agreed with them. Unlike his current self, who often doubts his own abilities, young Zanka believed he was above everyone else.
Damn straight, there's nothing you can do! I'd sooner be caught dead than get compared to any of these stupid punks.
Even though he worked hard, he thought his talent was what truly separated him from the others. That confidence was shattered when his teacher introduced a new student from the slums named Hio. Despite her rough background, the teacher believed she had incredible potential. He was proven right almost immediately. During her first training session, Hio defeated the entire class without much effort, including Zanka. While the other students tried to make excuses for losing, Zanka simply admitted that she was amazing and said he needed to train harder. However, behind his calm expression, he was furious. When he stepped away to drink water, he bit his mouth angrily until it bled. Calm down, man. It is really not that serious. He couldn't accept how easily Hio had defeated him. No matter what strategy he tried, she was always ahead of him. Zanka became obsessed with improving and decided to push himself harder than ever, repeating that he would become the strongest. Moments later, Hio unexpectedly appeared behind him. Instead of focusing on his strength, Hio asked him about the Golden Throne, a title given to the strongest student and someone expected to become a guard. Zanka proudly explained its importance, but Hio didn't seem impressed. She couldn't understand why a title mattered so much. Later, the students were tasked with choosing their main weapons. This was when Zanka found the stick that would become his vital instrument. 3 days later, Engine and Rio happened to pass through the city and discovered Zanka hiding in a hole. He explained that he'd chosen the stick because he believed Hio would pick the strongest looking weapon. Wanting to challenge her, he chose something that seemed weaker. But his plan completely failed. Hio chose a normal sword. To make matters worse, the stick was never even supposed to be there. It had only been placed on the weapons table by mistake. Everyone stared at Zanka in disbelief over his choice, and even his teacher looked disappointed. Overwhelmed with frustration, Zanka called himself pathetic and mediocre. but Engine saw something different. He pointed out that even while insulting the weapon, Zanka was still holding on to it. Engine told him that natural talent wasn't everything. With enough determination, someone could overcome the gap between themselves and a true genius. Before leaving, Engine said he wanted to return someday and see Zanka prove that he could defeat the real deal.
Maybe we'll see you around. We would love to see you prove my point.
Hearing those words reignited Zanka's determination, and he finally climbed out of the hole. Back in the present, the story returns to Zanka's battle against Jabber. After being struck down, Zanka forces himself back up, covered in injuries but still ready to fight. However, it's only an illusion. Jabber had already poisoned him with a toxin that causes realistic hallucinations. Zanka is still unconscious, imagining himself standing back up and continuing the fight. That is so dirty, man! Seeing Zanka laughing in his hallucination, Jabber assumes he's enjoying himself and begins laughing along with him, completely entertained by the situation. Meanwhile, Gita escapes from the place she was trapped in but finds herself alone. As she searches her surroundings, she discovers a strange glowing red object. A massive stone-like structure covered in torn hands and knives. Elsewhere, Jabber prepares to leave with the unconscious Zanka. Believing the fight is over, he decides to deliver him to a trash beast as a sacrifice. Damn, the disrespect! Episode 18 begins with Jabber celebrating what he believes is his victory over Zanka. However, his triumph is cut short when a bullet suddenly tears through his leg. Somewhere else underground, Engine hears the gunshot echo through the tunnels, but he has no time to investigate. He still has his own opponent to deal with, Fu. The problem is that their fight hasn't even started. Unlike the other raiders, Fu is visibly nervous. He admits that he's never actually started a fight before, but he's terrified of being the last raider to finish his assignment and earn Zodal's wrath. Awkwardly introducing himself, Fu even asks Engine to throw the first punch. Amused by the request, Engine flashes a mischievous grin and refuses. The episode then rewinds slightly to show what happened during Ryo's battle with Noerd. Using her giant scissors, Ryo creates powerful gusts of wind that helped deflect Noerd's electrically charged hair. As the fight continues, Ryo carefully studies her opponent and eventually ducks into the surrounding piles of trash. The fight goes on for a while, with both women ditching their weapons and turning it into a fist fight. But then, Ryo decides that her opponent is too strong, so she decides to pull out a gun. Without warning, Ryo pulls out a handgun and fires twice. Yeah, our girl brought a gun to a fistfight. The bullets strike Noerd, sending her collapsing to the ground. Ryo keeps the gun trained on her opponent as the truth about her past is revealed. Before joining the cleaners, Ryo worked as a professional assassin. Although she promised Engine that she would never take another life, she still carries the weapon she once relied on. Even now, she has no intention of killing Noerd. Returning to the present, Ryo uses the same gun against Jabber. Knowing how absurdly durable he is, she unloads several shots into him, leaving him badly wounded.
Have fun walking that off, you purple little freak show.
After confirming that Zanka is still alive, she picks him up and leaves. Elsewhere, Chthoni reports the latest developments to Zodal through her portals. Hearing how much trouble the cleaners are causing, Zodal admits that he's impressed by their resilience. Still, he decides it's time to move forward with the next stage of his plan. Using her ability, Chthoni teleports both Zodal and Rudo to the location of the mysterious red stone, which is also where Gita is. Hidden nearby, Gita watches the scene unfold in fear, while remaining unnoticed. Standing before the strange object, Zodal finally begins explaining his true objective to Rudo. When he touches the stone with Amo's boots, the object immediately reacts. Zodal then reveals an important secret. His coat is part of the legendary Watchmen series, just like Rudo's gloves.
It occurred to me, what if I could make my own additions to the Watchmen series?
What in the world is going on here? Episode 19 begins with Zodal finally revealing the true purpose behind his plans. Using Amo's boots, he touches the mysterious red stone, causing it to react violently. Tendril-like growths spread across the ceiling as the stone resonates with the power of the Watchmen series. For context, the Watchmen series refers to the oldest set of vital instruments in this world. Zodal explains that while experimenting with vital instruments in an attempt to create new members of the Watchmen series, he stumbled upon something unexpected. Although his original goal failed, he discovered a way to create an entirely new kind of trash beast. That breakthrough became the foundation of his current plan.
A beast of the ground, powered by a vital instrument, superficially resembling the natural variety. You've seen them, yes?
As Rudo listens, he recalls the unusually powerful trash beast he fought alongside Rio. Before he can dwell on the memory, Zodal reveals the shocking truth. They're currently inside one of the artificial creatures. More specifically, they're traveling within a gigantic winged trash beast that Zodal intends to use to reach the sphere itself. The revelation triggers a childhood memory for Rudo. As a sick and feverish child, he once dreamed that everyone around him despised his father and believed he would grow up to be exactly the same. Even Regto appeared in the nightmare. The dream was ultimately caused by the unbearable pain in Rudo's hands. The following day, Regto gave him the gloves that would later become his vital instrument. During the flashback, it becomes clear that Regto possessed a book bearing the same emblem found on Rudo's gloves, confirming that the item is connected to the Watchmen series. Back in the present, Rudo is stunned to learn that his gloves and Amo's boots are not unique. There are other Watchmen series items scattered throughout the world. The discovery raises even more questions, especially about how Regto managed to obtain one while living on the sphere.
How? If the Watchmen series came from the ground, then how'd Regto get part of it?
Zodal shares a similar curiosity. He finds it strange that Rudo possessed a Watchmen series item, yet knew nothing about vital instruments before arriving on the ground. More importantly, Rudo has been able to use the gloves without losing his mind. According to Zodal, most people eventually go insane after prolonged use of a Watchmen series item. The only reason he and others can wield them is because they've already lost a part of their humanity. As he speaks, the image of a mysterious child briefly appears, hinting at Zodal's own past. Zodal then unleashes an overwhelming aura and declares that he wants to discover the true potential of someone who possesses every Watchmen series item.
What would happen if you were to use every vital instrument in the Watchmen series at once? If I'm to achieve my goal, I must answer this question.
He reveals that his impending battle with Rudo is not simply a fight, it's another experiment. The giant artificial trash beast they're riding is heading toward the border between the ground and the sphere. By crossing it, Zodal hopes to learn a crucial truth. Who can survive the journey, and who cannot? At that moment, Gita finally reveals herself. Upon learning that she's inside an enormous trash beast, she becomes thrilled, enthusiastically comparing the situation to a giant monster battle. As the creature begins to shake violently, the story shifts to the other cleaners. Elsewhere, Engine abandons his confrontation with Fu in order to search for his missing comrades. Hoping to provoke a fight, Fu informs him that the others are trapped inside a trash beast. Instead of taking the bait, Engine becomes even more determined to destroy the creature and rescue everyone. Meanwhile, Bundus shares the same information with Bro and Deer. Although most cleaners are more accustomed to fighting trash beasts than human opponents, hearing that their friends are trapped inside one immediately changes their priorities. Bro activates his vital instrument, a cloth-like weapon and wraps it around Deer before launching him toward a nearby wall.
The hell is he thinking? It'll break through the wall? Bro, this is cute and all.
At first, Deer's punches seem laughably weak, barely making a dent. Bundus watches in confusion and criticizes Bro for relying on such a pointless strategy. However, he soon notices an unusual sound coming from the wall. To his surprise, each of Deer's strikes is gradually becoming stronger. Deer's ability allows him to absorb power from whatever he hits, weakening the target while steadily increasing his own strength. With every punch, the wall becomes more fragile, and Deer becomes more powerful. Before long, his accumulated strength is enough to break through, and he smashes a hole straight through the wall, creating a path forward. Who knew Deer Santa had this much aura? Episode 20 continues inside the colossal trash beast created by Zodal. After using his vital instrument to punch a hole through one of the creature's walls, Deer finally creates an escape route. Bundus, who had been calmly observing him until now, is genuinely impressed and seems ready to take the fight seriously. At the same time, the massive beast begins to move, signaling that Zodal's plan is already underway. As the giant creature prepares to take flight, chaos erupts inside its body. Deer, Bro, and Bundus lose their footing and are swept away by the shifting mountain of trash surrounding them. Countless objects come hurtling through the air, leaving them with almost nowhere to run. Just when it seems like they're about to be crushed, an entire car crashes into them. By some absurd stroke of luck, instead of flattening them, the vehicle perfectly catches all three of them inside. Peak anime logic.
Hold up! We're inside a car? I ain't dying like this!
Now, as unwilling passengers on a wildly uncontrolled ride, the trio desperately struggles to survive as more debris flies toward them. Their wild journey comes to an end when they crash land near Engine. They're surprised to find him accompanied by Fu, who's lying nearby in tears. Bundus quickly learns that Fu still hasn't managed to start a proper fight and immediately writes him off as hopeless. While the group discusses how to locate the rest of their scattered teammates, Semu finally contacts them through their chokers. After hearing the explosion, she gives them an earful, unable to believe they've ended up trapped inside a giant trash beast without defeating it yet. What confuses her even more is the fact that she still can't establish contact with Rudo, Zanka, or Rio. Her observation seems to trigger a realization in Engine, though he keeps his thoughts to himself for the moment. Instead of dwelling on the problem, Engine shifts his focus to finding a solution. He explains that the name Engine was given to him by someone important, and that it means a person who connects others. True to that meaning, he declares that he'll bring everyone back together no matter what.
In the old language, engine means someone who connects people. I'll be the ensign to bring us all together.
Hearing his confidence, Semu finally relaxes and places her trust in him. She also reassures the group that additional cleaners and supporters are already on their way to help. Elsewhere, inside the trash beast, Zodal continues trying to recruit Rudo. He argues that they ultimately want the same thing, and claims that Rudo is wasting time with the cleaners, whose only concern is fighting trash beasts. But Rudo is barely listening. His attention is fixed on Gita, who lies stranded on a stone pillar below. Rudo reflects on everything he's learned since arriving on the ground. He reveals that he's finally given his vital instrument a name, 3R. More importantly, he rejects Zodal's view of the world. To Rudo, nothing is truly worthless. The cleaners aren't a waste, and neither is the time he's spent with them. Through them, he found something he never had while living in the sphere: people who genuinely care about him. With that realization, Rudo makes his choice. Ignoring Zodal completely, he lets go of the ledge he's holding and drops toward Gita in an attempt to save her. The decision infuriates Zodal. He immediately leaps after Rudo, catches him by the throat, and mocks him, asking where his teammates are. Before he can get an answer, however, the ground above suddenly explodes apart. Engine bursts onto the scene and proudly announces his arrival, finally reuniting with Rudo just when he needs him most.
Where are those friends of yours now?
You were saying?
Hype! Episode 21 begins with a brief rewind. We see Bundus scoffing at Engine's confidence that he can reunite the scattered cleaners. Engine pays no attention and activates his vital instrument. He leaps from a pipe and uses his spinning umbrella to tear open a path through the floor. Bro and Deer follow close behind, and before long, they finally reconnect with Rudo. Their reunion gets even better when Rio arrives carrying an injured Zanka. For the first time since being separated, the cleaners are together again, while the raiders find themselves split apart. Unfortunately, they don't have much time to celebrate. The massive trash beast surrounding them begins to move, causing the terrain beneath their feet to shift. Rudo immediately spots an opportunity, pointing toward what he believes is the creature's heart. He rushes forward and activates 3R, transforming a nail gun into a weapon capable of striking the beast's core. Before he can land a hit, however, a prosthetic hand appears out of nowhere and blocks the attack. The obstacle is Bundus. Determined to prove himself as one of the raiders, he steps forward and reveals the true versatility of his collection of prosthetic arms. The cleaners launch a coordinated assault on the heart, but Bundus shuts them down at every turn. Each prosthetic arm possesses a different ability, reflecting the period of his life when he acquired it. Because he's carried many of them for years, they've developed exceptional quality as vital instruments. What makes Bundus especially dangerous is his ability to choose exactly the right hand for each opponent. One after another, the cleaners find their attacks neutralized. Bundus continues overwhelming the cleaners until Rudo experiences a realization. Unlike most objects he empowers, 3R has been passed down through generations. It belonged to Regto before him, and both Regto and Rudo spent years caring for it. That accumulated value means it can become even stronger than Rudo originally imagined. A massive red aura suddenly erupts from 3R. The nail gun expands dramatically, transforming into something closer to a cannon. Along its side appears a new marking, X3. Engine quickly understands what's happening. Instead of spreading his power across multiple objects, Rudo has poured his ability into the same weapon 3 times, amplifying its power even further. Rudo fires, and the first shot destroys one of Bundus's prosthetic arms. Confident he can still defend himself, Bundus blocks the nail with another arm. Then, Rudo fires again. This time, the attack shatters every remaining prosthetic hand in its path. Even so, Bundus manages to slightly alter the trajectory of the projectiles, preventing them from striking the beast's heart directly. At the same time, Rudo hesitates after seeing the destroyed instruments. Having spent his life valuing discarded objects, watching vital instruments break leaves him genuinely distressed. Maybe now is not the best time to feel bad for the enemy, Rudo. Anyway, Zodal contacts Bundus and orders a retreat. Bundus calmly obeys. The shattered fragments of his prosthetic arms fly back toward him and merge into the original arm that serves as the core of his vital instrument. Rudo demands to know why the raiders think they can simply walk away. Zodal responds that everything has gone according to plan. He's already gathered all the information he wanted. The cleaners, he explains, were nothing more than test subjects in his experiment. Before the heroes can destroy the beast's heart, a new threat emerges. Nwerd suddenly appears, her power far beyond what it was before. Shouldn't she be getting treatment after, getting shot? In the next episode, Zodal prepares to leave as Nwerd steps forward to cover the raiders' retreat. Before disappearing through one of Chthoni's portals, he reminds Rudo that he intends to collect every piece of the Watchmen series. With that, he vanishes, leaving No Word to deal with the cleaners. No Word unleashes her full power, spreading her hair throughout the chamber and flooding the area with powerful electricity. The current is so intense that it paralyzes everyone present, leaving the cleaners unable to move. However, the strain is clearly taking a heavy toll on her as well. Her hair begins to burn away under the overwhelming amount of energy she's forcing through it, but she refuses to stop. Elsewhere, inside the creature, Fu remains trapped and alone inside a pipe. Feeling abandoned and useless, he breaks down in tears, lamenting that nobody gave him any instructions. As his panic grows, he begins hearing the voice of someone he calls Master He. The mysterious voice promises to take over and help him escape, offering comfort in his moment of despair. Meanwhile, No Word continues pouring more and more electricity into the battlefield despite the damage it's causing to her body. Through clenched teeth, she prays for the trash beast to reach the border soon, uncertain how much longer she can withstand the pain. Watching her struggle, Rio can't help but laugh bitterly, realizing she probably should have finished No Word off when she had the chance. Despite the overwhelming paralysis, Rudo continues moving. Inch by inch, he drags himself toward the trash beast's core, seemingly ignoring No Word's attacks altogether. Then, a strange cracking sound echoes through the chamber. The noise draws everyone's attention. Both No Word and Engine realize that the ceiling has begun to fracture around the area where Rudo's enhanced nail gun struck earlier. Moments later, the weakened section gives way completely. A massive hole bursts open, creating a powerful vacuum that starts sucking everything toward it. Caught off guard, No Word is pulled toward the opening. She desperately grabs onto part of the ceiling, but eventually lets go. Surprisingly, she does so with a smile. As she falls, she remembers the day she first met Zodal. Unlike everyone else, he complimented her hair and gifted her with the comb that would eventually become her vital instrument. Thinking back on that moment, she seemed genuinely happy. As she drifts toward the border, she gazes at it with awe, believing it to be beautiful. Then, she notices something terrifying. On the other side stands an enormous creature. Its full appearance is obscured, but it seems to be staring directly at her. Horrified by the sight, No Word insists that she needs to warn Zodal about what's at the border. Before she can say more, darkness suddenly envelops her, and she disappears. Back inside the trash beast, the cleaners struggle to hold on and avoid being pulled through the opening. At that critical moment, Gita finally wakes up. As cheerful as ever, she quickly realizes what's happening and becomes excited at the opportunity to use her vital instrument. Leaping into action, her body begins to grow larger and larger until she transforms into a giant kaiju-like form. Using her enormous body, Gita plugs the hole in the ceiling, stopping the suction and giving the others a chance to recover. With the danger contained, the cleaners finally launch their attack at the trash beast's core and destroy it. The massive creature immediately begins to fall apart. As the structure collapses around them, everyone grabs onto Gita, whose gigantic form will help cushion the landing. Rudo is the last one to join them because he takes a moment to recover Amo's boots before escaping. The group eventually crashes safely back to the ground. Not long afterward, additional cleaners and supporters arrive to assist them. They quickly move to help the injured, especially Zanka, while preparing medical treatment for everyone else. With the battle finally over and his friends safe, Rudo allows himself to collapse from the exhaustion. In the next episode, Rudo decides to visit Zanka in the infirmary. Since Rudo has never really had to visit someone who was injured before, he isn't sure what to do. He decides to bring flowers as a simple gesture to wish Zanka a quick recovery. When they arrive at Zanka's room, everyone is shocked. Instead of finding him lying helplessly in the bed, they discover him already awake and meditating with his vital instrument. Expecting him to still be recovering, they quietly close the door and watch from outside. Engine comments that Zanka has already been through so much, but he believes those experiences will push him to grow stronger. The speech gets interrupted when Samu contacts Engine with news. Remlin has arrived because they want to apologize to Zanka. The reason is revealed to be surprisingly ridiculous. When Remlin painted the protection spell on everyone before the mission, they didn't actually draw a normal damage reduction spell on Zanka. Instead, because the kid thought he looked too serious, they decided to add something funny. Their spell would make Zanka's arm grow larger whenever he struck a specific pose. That is actually insane. Despite how absurd it sounds, Zanka doesn't get angry. He even laughs about it. Rather than blaming Remlin, Zanka admits that he was the one who failed. He'd relied too much on the protection spell and assumed it would keep him safe, so he sees his injuries as proof that he wasn't strong enough. After everyone leaves, Rudo stays behind. He's impressed by Zanka's determination and wants to understand how someone can keep pushing forward after everything that happened. Zanka admits he's frustrated he couldn't contribute more during the fight, but he refuses to stay weak. He proudly declares that he'll become stronger. Rudo smiles at him, though his expression comes across as more of a mocking grin than a genuine smile.
I think there's a lot I can learn from this guy. Ew. What'd you do to your face? Are you messing with me again, you dirtbag?
You need to work on your smile, Rudo. Zanka immediately gets annoyed, and the two end up arguing like usual. Meanwhile, the raiders continue planning their next move. Zodal explains that the attack on the cleaners was nothing more than an experiment. The fact that they survived doesn't bother him, because he was never focused on defeating them completely. Instead, he was studying their abilities and testing his own creations. The raiders already have another trash beast prepared, but now they need to strengthen it enough to cross the border. As a reward for his performance, Zodal promotes Bundus and gives him a mysterious item marked with the name Canis Shorebreck. He then assigns Bundus his first mission as a true member of the Raiders: find the person who created the Chokers. Zodal believes that the Chokers may be connected to the Watchmen series because their influence spreads across the entire ground. If the Raiders want to gather every piece of the series, they will need to uncover the identity of the Choker Maker. As Zodal continues explaining his plan to reach the sphere, the episode cuts away to an unknown location. Noerd's body lies somewhere in the distance, and it appears that someone unexpected has discovered her. The person standing over her is revealed to be Hio, Zanka's former rival, or at least a look-alike. Interesting nonetheless. The last episode begins with Rudo quietly watching Remlin sitting alone on a bench, looking unusually down. After everything that happened, they're struggling with their feelings, and Rudo isn't sure how to approach the kid. Before he can do anything, Zanka appears and gives him the encouragement he needs. Zanka understands that Rudo has been thinking about what Amo told him, about learning how to reach out and connect with others. He tells Rudo that if he wants to start changing, he needs to take the first step. Since Remlin is clearly upset, cheering them up is the perfect opportunity. Taking his advice, Rudo walks over to the kid with a piece of paper and awkwardly asks if they can teach him how to draw. Remlin immediately notices how nervous he is and laughs, finally letting go of some of their sadness. Soon, Rudo, Remlin, Deer, and Gita all gather together to draw random stuff. We then learn that Remlin wants to paint a giant mural in Canvas Town. Arca then decides to send the kids on a field trip to Canvas Town, which also doubles as a mission. And because he's the oldest, Rudo takes his responsibility seriously and sees himself as the one who has to protect everyone. He becomes excited, but also nervous about the trip. However, he doesn't realize that Engine and Bro are secretly following them from a distance to keep watch. Engine believes everything should be fine, especially since the raiders just attacked them recently and probably won't make another move so quickly. Meanwhile, back at the cleaner headquarters, Arca prepares for a completely different problem. a group from the Hellguard arrives after learning that a spherite is living among the cleaners. Semu immediately realizes what's happening and understands that Arca intentionally sent Rudo away so he wouldn't be present during their visit. The Hellguard leader, Kyoka Nijiku, questions Arca about the recent battle with the raiders. The giant trash beast caused massive damage and injuries, and she criticizes the cleaners for letting things get so out of control. But Arca knows that isn't the real reason they came. Kyoka then reveals her true objective. She wants Rudo. She explains that Rudo could be the key to understanding the connection between the ground and the sphere. The Hellguard wants answers about the past, including the mysterious blank years that have been lost to history. To uncover the truth, she believes they need to study the boy. While this is happening, Rudo and the others arrive in Whole City to buy ink for Remlin's artwork. The group quickly gets distracted, enjoying themselves instead of focusing on the mission. Watching from nearby is Fu, the raider. Interestingly, Fu isn't there to attack them. Instead, he's wandering around because he wants someone to give him orders. He believes he needs instructions to know what he should do, and his doll, Master He, encourages him to approach the kids. Yeah, a doll. Something tells me that Fu isn't really mentally stable. When a suspicious man appears and tries to lure the children away by offering them candy, he tells Fu that this is the perfect chance to step in and act. But before Fu can do anything, Rudo notices the man is clearly lying. Furious that he would try to trick them, Rudo attacks him and knocks him out with a single kick. Fu and Master He are shocked by how quickly things turned out. Later, the group arrives at Canvas Town, where they meet up with the adults who'd been secretly watching over them. Remlin proudly shows Rudo the mural they created on the ceiling of the city entrance. The entire tunnel is covered in artwork, and the group lies down to admire the drawings from below. As they look up, Rudo and Engine notice something familiar. Among the paintings is the same symbol that appears on Rudo's gloves. Remlin explains that the symbol belongs to someone known as the Undertaker, aka Canis Schurbreck. Rudo freezes when he hears the name. That's because his full name is Rudo Schurbreck.
Equals best friends, the Undertaker, Canis Schurbreck.
But that's my name. I'm Rudo Schurbreck.
In a post-credits scene, Amo is shown imprisoned in a cage. When someone approaches, she briefly hopes it's Rudo, but the person standing before her is someone else. The one smiling at her from the shadows is Tamsi. Wait, so he's a bad guy? Damn. And that's the entire story of Gachiakuta so far. Hopefully we get a second season as soon as possible. Feel free to click the link on screen to watch another one of my videos, but in the meantime, peace!